Kia ora and welcome to the Aotearoa Rugby Pod once again, the first weekend of international rugby through the July window. And the All Blacks in England had a tight one, an uncomfortable watch to say the least, probably for both sets of fans. So we'll break down that plenty today during the show. We'll have Ardie Savea, the All Blacks number 8 and World Player of the Year on the show as well. We did promise you Ethan Roots. Unfortunately, that's fallen over. England couldn't provide us with him for the show tonight, but we'll hopefully have him on next week after the second test match. Of course, South Africa against Ireland. Absolute doozy. That was a crazy test. All sorts of weird stuff was happening over there. The Aussies are too good for Wales. Of course, your emails, your YouTube comments, and we'll give you a Gilbert ball from our friends at Players Sports. So, before we go any further, of course, who's with me? James Parsons.
I'm back, finally.
Fired up after a couple of weeks out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, ready to chat some code.
Yeah, and plenty to chat. And of course, Bryn Hall coming into the big screen out of Christchurch. Brynner, that test match got you excited?
Oh, I loved it. Absolutely loved it. I think for New Zealand fans, they would have feeling maybe possibly a little bit different with how close it was. But I think we've just known how good this England side is, and we'll go a little bit more deeper into it. But look, I think the two styles that I think the All Blacks played was really, really good for me in terms of playing in a high octane, trying to throw the ball around and being able to use our skill set, but then understanding that things were a little bit different and they went more to a territory game, which I really enjoyed being able to go in between both. So, yeah, I loved it. And, 1 point, you talk around theatre, even that last play as well was probably talked about on the other side, if you're an England supporter and probably the English media, that it could have possibly been a penalty. But no, I think it was a great way to start, and I think maybe a good introduction to the New Zealand fans of how good this English rugby team is and how good the second test match is going to be at Eden Park.
The team got put under a lot of pressure, the All Blacks it is, by the England defence, flying out of the line, closing off those inside channels. It was something else. They did a very good job of it.
Yeah, they've turned it around massively. Obviously, we spoke at length, I suppose, early on in the Six Nations, how rush defence can be your best friend, but also your worst friend. But they seem to have got their mojo back. I think the All Blacks will be better for it. Coming off the back. And the reason I say that for this week in Auckland, because we've highlighted Damien a lot of times for the Chiefs this year when playing the Hurricanes, who probably have the closest thing to a rush defence like England, and his ability to hold his feet or create that separation and depth. Obviously, he's got those relationships with the Chiefs players, but I think, they've obviously played a lot of rugby together, Geordie and Damo, and I think they'll be able to manipulate him and be better for the experience in Dunedin to hopefully probably, I suppose, take it apart like you saw when Crossfield kicked to Sevu Reece, a couple of times, even Stephen Petafeta's nice little bit of footwork, just holding those feet and creating deception for the defence. I think Damien will be the key to seeing an improved performance, and he's got one of the better skill sets, I believe, against the rush defence.
In the past, I feel like we've seen more short kicks behind the line and those kind of things when the rush defences come at the All Blacks, but they seem to persevere with ball in hand, especially through that first half. Yeah,
I think maybe, Bryn sort of touched on it around the two styles, and he probably knows these coaches better than most, but I think it was almost, like, let's have a crack early and see where we get to. And then, once the test tightens and there's a bit of fatigue, maybe, moving to that contestable kicking game. 35 kicks, that's a hell of a lot of kicks for an All Blacks team against England. Normally, it's not that high, so it was definitely a clear tactic change during that game.
And more so with Bowden on the field, there appeared to be more kicking once he came on, Brynner.
Yeah, it was. He had some nice attacking kicks and I guess more so territorial kind of kicks that was really, really good in that second half. And I think, like you guys said, the second half, there was a change in terms of what the All Blacks game plan was. They went more to the contestable kicks. Finlay Christie, I guess, using the game management side and being able to set up the box kick to be able to execute the contestables, which he did really well. Damien McKenzie at some times as well was trying to kick the contestables to the far side, which we touched on earlier last week. But I think you talk around what you said around the rush defense, Ross, and like if you look in the first part of that series, or in that first half, when you don't get your passes right, it's really hard to try and get that ball away. Now, there were a couple of times, maybe 3 times in that first half when the second pivot was really deep, but that skill set of being able to get the ball away under pressure, in the kind of Rico Ioane's channel or the loose forward outside there, if that ball's not in front and you're not able to flick it on, it's really hard to get it away. And that's credit to England's defence, which they were able to do a lot in that first half. And I look at probably the first 5 minutes, we were able to get that ball away and being able to get momentum through that 3-hour attack. But if you look at Damien Severese's try, I think that's a good incentive for this All Blacks team and seeing what they're going to see with this English team. You know, they went 13 phases and being able to see that kick space with Damien McKenzie and Severese, he puts his hand up to be able to give him that acknowledgement that the ball was there. So you'd have to think that maybe if they can't get that ball away with their second pivot or getting it away on the phase play, go into that attacking kicking game with those crossfield kicks that we saw with Damien McKenzie, or even early on, maybe little chips in behind to try and stop that English defence, because it was very, very impressive in terms of the all-out blitz and more so a carefree kind of line speed from their outsides, which was pretty impressive to see.
Yeah, and I think when they scored those tries, in the lead up to it, the All Blacks forwards, in particular Patrick Tuipulotu, was just running direct. Not looking for tips, just looking to use a big body and get across that gain line. Once you get in behind that gain line, defence has to retreat. You just can't bring the same line speed because you can't get set in time. So I do think, like just that direct nature and that brute force that we've seen with the Blues and Paddy leading it, I do think that's a key to breaking down a rush defence as well, because you've got to, I know it's so cliche, but you've got to go through them first before you can sort of try to attack those edges. And if you look at both of those tries, and yes, some freakish skill from Stephen and one of them, but both times Paddy had a big carry over the game line and it led to tries. I
feel like last year when the All Blacks were playing well, that is where they did well, in that direct nature. So it did surprise me a little bit that they appeared to be relatively lateral at times during that first half. Yeah,
but I think once they got onto that, that's when both sides of the ball at the breakdown, it's just so clear and easy to understand. Like, you're going to run and I'm going to clean you. There's no sort of second, guessing of each other, and that simplicity really does, I believe, suit the attacking game of the All Blacks and allowing the backs to do what they're great at. And it creates time and space. And an All Blacks backline with time and space, it can be pretty dangerous.
We've talked a lot about gain line success this year being like a really important metric in being successful for a rugby team. So Woody, our stats guy, crunched the numbers for us. 40% success, 347 metres gained from 152 carries. That's 2.3 metres per carry, Brynner. It's not a lot for the All Blacks. They really did struggle there.
Having big ball carriers is really, really important. And I actually think in more of this year, we're going to see the likes of Tamaiti Williams and Tossi and those guys coming off the bench in those kind of times, along with Scott Barrett, along with Ardie Savea and Paddy Tuipulotu, having all those kind of guys on the field, being able to get over the advantage, I think it's going to be able to open up our attack. Because if you look at the South African game on the weekend, you look at their big players and their ability to be able to get over the line, it seems to be the big forward packs that are able to do that consistently time and time again, are able to then to be able to attack. You look at the South Africans on the weekend, their attack was so much better. They were able to actually get around the Irish, which we probably struggled to get around the Irish in terms of their high line speed pressure as well. So that going through mindset that Jip talked around, the physicality and being able to have 1-2 metres over the advantage line makes it so much easier to be able to attack in those wider edges that I touched on earlier.
And I know with Leon, when he coached myself at the Blues, his big metric for carries is 4 metres. He believes, if you get 4 metres in a carry for like a forward in tight, that's deemed a good carry. Anything less, so I mean, those are lower than probably what we're used to for the All Blacks, but.
Is that 4 metres from the moment the ball hits your hands, or is that 4 metres from the advantage line
I think at the collision point. So you're trying to get through the other side of the defence. Which isn't easy to do. Like 4 metres is actually quite a hard carry, and that's why you need a big body like an Ofa Tuangafasi or a Paddy. And then you have, I suppose, your more live wire threats in the tip position or the inside. So it was quite specific around who needed to be in that main carry position, because that's how the attack structure got going. So I'm sure they'll be looking at when they did that, they scored points. And the more often they can do that, the better they'll be. It takes energy out of England, but two, it just doesn't allow them to get that rush like we saw. And Bryn's right, the Springboks, you want to see an example of beating Rushdie is that first try. There's a bit of freakish skills to finish it off, but to get to that edge, and I thought Khaleesi was exceptional getting that pass away under pressure. You know, something Jerome Kino did very well as well for a long time. So, you know, they can have the brute, but man, there was some very, very nice touches. I know I'm getting off track here, but
we'll definitely get to that.
They looked very good. They looked very good against the Rushdie of.
Before we move on from Rushdie, the Blues, they had huge game line success. And when you look at the 40% the All Blacks had, there's quite a substantial difference between, I suppose, an expectation at Test level and an expectation at Super Rugby level. Yeah,
there's an element of, like, 40% isn't that uncommon, but yes, if you looked at, I suppose, the leading teams in Super Rugby, they were around that sort of 55 to 60. You're never going to probably get that at Test match level with Tier 1 nations against each other, but I think they'd want to look to improve that, get that closer to that sort of 50%. Then I think they'll be achieving their, you know, sort of carry metrics of that 4 metres to allow them to get going. But it doesn't surprise me. Like, you knew what England were going to do. You knew the rush was coming. You're not always going to be able to beat the rush. They are going to catch you behind the game line. It's just, you know, but you've got to have an ability to, one, find the edge via hand or boot, or do as we said, you've got to beat them up a little bit first and really take it to them.
What about your mate Stephen Pettifeta? Is he likely to stay at 15, or do you think they'll say, OK, Bowden's had some time now?
He's outstanding.
Yeah, I think he has to stay. I don't know how you could drop him.
Yeah.
And I honestly think less change the better. Like, there's already been a lot of change. There'll be new calling systems. You know, they've only had 10 days together. You don't want to try and chop and change. I think you'll see a lot of change, obviously, for the Fiji game in San Diego, but I think it'll be copy-paste, except for obviously the 9 position for this week.
Yeah, I thought Stevie was outstanding for that 15 minutes that he came on, and I really like him and Beauden Barrett coming off the bench in terms of the game managementship, and if it's tight, you know, a lot of experience, and with his test match and his skill set, his communication skills are world class as well. So when you can bring a guy on like that with that experience and that kind of game situation, what happened on the weekend, I think it's perfect. You give Stevie another chance to be able to get runs on the board. He'll feel pretty good around his performance on the weekend, knowing that, you know, he's up to this level, his first start, you know, as a fullback. So I think sometimes with guys like that, you want to keep that powder dry and keep giving them the opportunities, especially with a good performance like that, knowing that Beauden is probably one of the best closers in the world, being able to come off the bench. So I don't see there's going to be a lot of change, Ross, to be honest, within that 23, other than Finlay or Cortez, whoever starts at 9.
What about the depth of the back line? We've had an email through from Joe Schmidt from Cape Town, and he's basically saying, hey, look, when I look back at the late 90s, early 2000s, the Aussies and New Zealanders attacked from such depth and looked so good. Why do they play so close to the line now? You know, he feels like it stops them really being able to create.
Geez, I thought they were pretty deep, wouldn't you say, Brent? Like, some of those release passes were... Like, man, the English defenders did well to get to them, if I'm honest. Like, they were, I don't think you could say, I don't think you'd want to be any deeper.
If you're too deep and you give the ball too early, it's really easy for the defence to be able to swim off and then being able to, I guess, have a double shoulder, or there's a couple of players that are going to be on the ball carrier. So, like, if you look at, I don't know, so if you're just running like a play and you've got 2 forwards that are going off the 10, but you know, they're not really engaging anybody, and you're going out the back a deep pass, then those guys are able to be able to like swim off and then being able to then push out the defenders that are outside them. So then they've pretty much got more men on their feet than the actually attackers. So that's why it's really important to play flat at the first part. So, you know, if you're looking at off 9 or even off 10, that first pass has got to be nice and flat to be able to engage the hard defence. And then when you go out the back with that massive line speed pressure, the depth and the animation of the guys that are running those holes is really, really important. So if you look at early clips, hopefully you can clip them, Ross. If you look when they get that ball back from Geordie Barrett and he passes the ball with that line speed pressure, if that ball isn't here, then you can't get that ball across. So that's why it's so hard to get through the line speed pressure, because everything has to be in the same time. You've got to be able to have the skill set to be in the right place at the right time. And if it's too deep, if you give it too early, too deep, then it's a lot easier to be able to defend it.
Let's put the shoe on the other foot. What can England do well? What can they improve on in order to get that victory, Bryn?
Oh, to be honest, I think it's pretty... They don't need to change a lot. Like, they were 1 point away and, you know, probably a 50-50 call at the end, which could have gone the other way. Look, their attacking ability... You look at Mbossel's try, the 14 phases and their kind of DNA, I thought that really excites me. What hopefully we see in Eden Park is, Marcus Smith being able to play on top of teams nice and flat. He had some great ball runners that were just off his hip. He was going to the line, dummying, and then a little outside pop to him. Alex Mitchell, I thought, opened up in terms of his running game and being able to look for both sides and sniping and being able to, I guess, take the ball into contact. And so I think, again, it's the collision area, and if they can continue to keep winning that, give them more self opportunities to be able to have that phase play shape and that attacking ability that they showed for that Embosel try. The attacking side, I think, is really good. And then we know with their kick ability with Alex Mitchell or Marcus Smith, they've got the ability to be able to kick along, or they can go to a contestable. And then also their set piece as well. They'll be a little bit disappointed that I think that they tried to go for line-out penalties, didn't get a lot of good pay out of that with they're able to get penalties or being able to try and attack off that due to the discipline of the defence from the All Blacks. So there's enough there, Jip. Look, I was I wasn't surprised to see how these guys played, and there were only a few little things, a few little margin of areas that they got wrong, and they would have had probably a different result with the way they played. So they'll be quietly confident, I think, that what they are doing is going to be there or thereabouts to get the decision come Saturday night at Eden Park.
I think their scrum they'll want to sort, being a front rower. There's a lot of egos up front there, so I think they'll want to tidy that up.
With Marla gone, that could be more difficult.
Yeah. But I mean, they did get some penalties from it, but it was just probably the All Blacks overachieving.
The hit and chase that they were getting done for. Can you explain a little bit about that? And I suppose what happens to allow the chase? Is that the opposition pulling back?
Yeah,
or, what
it's hard. You've got to be in there. But there's a lot of games in it.
Yeah.
So they could be pulling back because they know they've got a ref on side and they're struggling. You're supposed to set, and that's why the relationship with the 9 and the hooker is so key, because the 9 and the hooker have got to almost, once that ball's in, you can push. So the quicker, if you hit and get that ball in, then the chase is the easy part. But if there's a slight delay in that, then you're pushing before the ball's in, and it's, obviously not allowed. So just making sure that 9s and hookers timing is critical in terms of the way the ref will ref that.
Yeah.
If you're not dominant, sometimes just getting it in and out is critical too. If you're getting absolutely monstered, you just want to, sort of have that quick channel 1 ball and the number 8's almost scooping it up and going.
Yeah.
Before it falls on top of them. But it's all gamesmanship, especially halfbacks always looking to tell the refs how to ref and asking for penalties and things like that.
Hookers never chat after a scrum. Absolutely silent. They're mute.
Yeah, they are. They are.
In the traditions of Sean Fitzpatrick, saying absolutely nothing.
Zero. Absolutely nothing.
Right. Well, what would you say to a couple of emails I've got here? One from Danny Marsh in Germany. He's asked for a definition of what success looks like under this coaching regime, having seen what you saw on the weekend. What do you see success as for the All Blacks over the course of the season now that you've seen that? Yeah,
well, look, I think I saw this, it's quite hard to answer because, being an ex-All Black, the expectation is you win every test. So I think unfortunately, that's what makes our point of difference, is that legacy and is that, I suppose, pressure to perform. In saying that, and as we're seeing with a very good Ireland team, going to South Africa for the Rugby Championship is going to
be a challenge.
Be a big challenge.
Yeah.
To get both wins.
Razor's massive around, you don't need to lose to be able to learn. You can win and still learn. And so that's the mindset that they'll have. If they do lose, then again, you'll be able to go through your analyst work and your solutions of how you do that. But this group will be pretty driven around every single game that they do play. And they put that black jersey on, it's the expectation is to win. So anything less than a win will not sit well with that coaching group, knowing them, and probably the players as well. Like Jip said, you want to win every single test match. That's the expectation in this country. To be an All Black, you've got to win every game.
So I'm going to follow that up with a question I really like from Bo Smith because he puts the acid on. And Bo, for that, will give you the Gilbert Ball from Players Sports just for this question because I really like it. So will you be putting a decent-sized bet on that?
Well, if I was allowed to gamble on rugby, absolutely. But I'm not, so
all right.
bet responsibly, guys.
So, Bo will be putting money on that.
Get into it, Bo.
Yeah.
Rip in.
This is hypothetically, if the All Blacks did go through undefeated, it would have to be arguably probably one of the best ever to do it
It's a very hard schedule.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
And that's what I mean. They've got to go to South Africa against, a defending world champion who I think are only going to get better when we do play them. We've got to go play France. We've got to go play Ireland. So it's going to be very, very tough. But the expectation is that Willies they want to try win, but the silverware obviously is really important to go a little bit deeper and around there and winning those things.
So realistically, probably 2 losses.
Well, man, there was nearly a meltdown when there was 2 losses.
Yeah, but there are
Fozzie.
14 test matches. It's a lot of test matches.
Oh, I don't know. Those words of like accepting a loss just can't come out of me.
You can't come out of your mouth.
They just can't.
I keep pushing. I kind of feel like, to me, success is 1 or 2 losses this year. You just can't say you're going to play France, Ireland and South Africa all the way from home in a year and not lose one of those test matches.
Why not?
Because, it's just hard to imagine because those are good teams and great teams at home.
Dominant team.
Ross, from the World Cup, and I think the competitiveness, where international rugby is right now, Kiwis wouldn't be surprised if that did happen, right? We'd be gutted, but I think we're more understanding. It wouldn't be a shock if we went to South Africa and we lost to South Africa, who were playing some really good rugby. You've got the French and you've got the Irish. So we've just got a hell of a schedule that we're going to be able to try win test matches. So
I'll tell you what, if they do it,
it's an all-time great.
And it's a hell of a
give them the
hell of a
year.
coup because it's a doozy of a schedule.
Yeah, well, that would give Scott Robertson Coach of the Year and the All Blacks Team of the Year, and it would be all on because that would be an incredible achievement. And in order to do that, we would need an outstanding effort from Ardie Savea, and we caught up with him a couple of weeks ago in outstanding form in the other studio. Well, as promised, welcome onto the show. Not just any old rugby player, World Player of the Year, Ardie Savea. Humble man. You can see it a little bit. He's a bit like, no, not another person saying that. Hey, thank you for joining us, mate. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
I'm going to jump in straight away, Ross. Straight away. Japan, bro. Obviously, we were with Kobe. Really good spot. Obviously, enjoyed your time there. What were the learning experience you had? Obviously, different culture, different team. How was that whole experience and what did you enjoy about it?
Yeah, first of all, konnichiwa.
Konnichiwa.
I really enjoyed it, bro. Like, the culture, the food, the people. Didn't realise how much of a good setup I had at Kobe. Great coaches, facility, everything. It's just real class. So what helped it more was my family came over and they loved it too. So it was real good, eh? Just, karaoke nights, karaoke nights, yakiniku, the feeds. Just
What was your favourite food?
Yakiniku.
Yakiniku was your favourite? Yeah.
Right. Yakiniku, and then obviously doing my onigiri stuff at the convenience stores and getting stick for it.
I saw that.
But the funny thing is I've been eating onigiris in the morning for like 2 months, and Gani's with me, and he'd been watching me do it.
Yeah.
Not once he told me how to open it. Way.
You're going to have to explain to people what are these 2 foods you're talking about.
Oh, yakiniku is like it's just what?
It's like a Korean barbecue.
Barbecue.
You cook your own food.
Cook your own food, cook your own meat, but it's like,
especially where he is, like the beef that they get at that part of Japan. It's probably the best in Japan.
Legendary.
10 out of 10.
Yeah.
And then onigiri is just like the triangle sushi kind of roll thing that you buy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I just got a bit of stick.
Did you get into natto?
I tried natto, but it wasn't the one.
It's like a fermented soybean that all the Japanese boys, when you come in, they just say, you got to taste this. It's more so part of their tradition. I couldn't do it. It just tastes like rubbish.
It's not good.
Terribly.
Some people love it, eh?
Yeah.
But just love the experience in general.
Yeah.
The whole,
It must be super cool as a family man as well, the opportunity that provides for your wider family. Rugby opens up some doors like that that most people don't necessarily get to see. Your kids have got to live a different way, and
Yeah, it was hard actually, like, to be honest, because you will know, like, the Japanese kids there are like real well behaved. Like, you go to a cafe and they're just quiet, eat their food. I chuck my kids in there, they're screaming, yelling, and you're just like, shh. So that's what we struggled, because the kids, you know, like, we had like people underneath us, on top of us, and my son loves basketball, so he was just like 6 in the morning, just like boof, boof, boof.
They'll complain.
He was like boof, boof. I was like, oh, shh. He complains, you know.
100%.
It's like,
100%.
so, but apart from that, man, like, it was awesome for them to like just be on that side of the world, like experience a different culture and learn like Japanese a little bit, and have like different foods. Like my oldest daughter, she's 6, turning 7. She loved it. Like, she loved cooking the food and getting herself amongst it. So yeah, it's you kind of don't realize what you're doing for the children until you kind of sit back and you're like, wow.
And coming home, that was also like a bit of a, it's good to be home kind of thing as well.
Yeah, I think towards the end, I wanted to go home, go to my local cafe, get a nice latte.
New Zealand food.
New Zealand food, like, you know, the eggs on toast.
Yeah.
You know, good coffee.
Yeah, you've been mainlining hollandaise since you got back. Yeah,
Nah,
eggs Benny
my
all day.
skinnies, mate.
Well, you got to start thinking about your skinnies now. Like.
Skin folds.
Thinking about it now.
But it was just nice to just come home, be around, like, catch up with the boys again.
Yeah.
Be around like mum and dad, just drop offs, pickups, and just get into, you know, everyday routine life. And it's been nice, bro. It's been nice to have a bit of downtime, because I got home for a week and then shot straight to Japan after World Cup. So this kind of block has been the only time, like a little decent break. So yeah, it's been nice to be home.
How'd you find the transition of being able to try and do different style of rugby? Because obviously some foreigners it takes them a little bit of time to be able to adjust to that. How'd you find it?
Yeah, because when you go over, people go, oh, you're going to go, it's going to be like, you know, a little, like a rest for you. Nah, it's not a rest. Like, the quality of players there is pretty up there, and they're known for they're not the
old grass cuts.
The
old grass cuts.
But I found like it helped me, because at the start I kind of struggled. Like, I was like, damn, I'm getting chopped. Usually my leg drive's like my strong point, but then it kind of challenged me to find different ways of how to carry the ball and whatnot. So I found it challenging at the start, but then once I got into the groove of things, started to understand, and because I didn't know what teams were good, what weren't, you know, I was just like going in blind. But yeah, after that, man, it was good.
So it's like knees up. Like, how do you get through a chop tackle? Like, what did you develop?
Just standing.
You're fending down to your ankles.
Just like,
Pretty much. Like he did my whole career. We just get out of the way, Ross. I wanted to bring that on. The amount of times that I had to be shown on this show. Off the back of a scrum, Ardie just putting me on my backside. So.
The crazy thing is, all I hear is, oh, he's coming. I was like, yeah, he knows I'm coming.
Well, that's what I'm telling him, so my flankers can get us, so I don't have to tackle you. So yeah, we just get there.
That's our most played moment of the show.
I'm going to front foot it.
Every year I find a way to play that. I've got to find a way to play that.
The concussion I had from that, geez, it wasn't flash. So,
He put on a cape.
I only got the only time I got him this year, because the rules are a little bit different in Japan. So like, I think in Super Rugby now, the halfbacks can't go past the halfway tunnel. So in Japan, we can still cut it off. So I can actually just get into a space where Ardie doesn't even cut my way. I can just cut it off, get my flankers to deal with that, or a little 10 just have a go at it. I don't want to do it on highlight reel. No, thank you. Spend my time there. So thanks for that, Ardie. Thanks
good.
for that, bro.
Oh, nice. And you come back, you played a game of footy on the weekend for Oriental Rongotai.
Yeah.
Good times?
Yeah, good times. Always nice going down and playing some club footy. You kind of like don't realise how much time goes by, because you're playing with 19-year-olds and young guys that are like just freakish. But it's always nice going down to the club. The team we played against, I grew up with most of those guys in the opposition team, so it was real nice to, after the game, to just catch up. They were having a sausage sizzle, and the kids were just giving me free sausages. So I was like, but I was eating, and it was like, oh, can we do an interview? I was like, oh, okay. But just cool to be around, you know, that and you kind of don't realise the impact that we have as All Blacks and footy players. So it's nice to go down and give back, but also just rub shoulders with some of the youth of Wellington. It's good.
What do you love about the Wellington club footy scene? Because it seems to be a big draw. And Dane Coles is always down talking to the old timers at Porneke, what is it about that scene? Wellington seems to still love the grassroots in a way that maybe other parts of the country don't.
Man, and Wallies is there was a great crowd that turned up, and I think just like I think you mentioned before, you've got people live streaming the game and commentating the game, and it's the Usos from from the hood that are commenting, so it's funny and they're mocking the boys while they're playing. And just I think it's just the guys that come through college. I think college is a big thing everywhere in New Zealand, but it's just that rivalry. Yeah. Me and Colsey and that, and TJ, we'll give stick to each other because we're big club men. So I don't know what it is, but I think it's just because we started there when we were young. And
well, it seems like it's more so not just you, but your brother and obviously the older guys that were there before you, Tumbly Allison, or even the likes of those older players. It just seems like that's kind of the progression, right? Yeah. You guys give back to your club, and obviously what that does for your grassroots, your kids see you boys at the clubs, and it's a possibility, right, to become an All Black or play.
That's it. I remember when I was young, Ma'a was he was the hero for us. We're a small community, and he is Skux. He's an All Black, so it was a beacon of hope. Maybe we could be like that. So going back to the club, you just like I said, it's a nice reminder. Yeah. See kids, and you never know, they'll be playing in the black jersey soon. Some of these kids in the club rugby. So that's good.
Yeah, it's cool. There's a cool connection. I remember when I was living down in Wellington, down at Berrenpore, they'd play touch at those grass fields.
Did you grow up in Berrenpore?
I didn't. I lived down there for not 10 years, a little bit of time.
Oh, yeah.
A bit of time. But you go down and you would see Ma'a. You would see Ma'a's brother. I remember seeing Julian down there playing touch and in with the community. And I was like, man, this is awesome. These are All Blacks in here playing touch with the people.
Yeah, and that was it. Because when we grow up, we play multiple sports, volley, social touch. And I think when you become professional, it's don't do anything outside of your training, because you can't. But boys, you always used to just go play social touch at Wakefield or McAllister Park. Yeah. And that was just the norm. You'd always have guys going out there playing volleyball. Yeah. And I think it's just good because people see us as I guess here, but we're just the normal dudes that grew up in Wellington since we were kids, and that's how we're seen.
Yeah. The Hurricanes,
yes,
obviously made a big part of you and your identity in New Zealand rugby. Yeah. How was it watching them for the first time?
Man, I was loving it, mate. Yeah. Being with Brody, Bryn Gatlin, Gerard, Epa at the Blues. So during the season, we're making lunch money. Yeah. So the boys doing really well. Me and Ngani, man, we were watching them. Just real happy for them. I played with most of the guys because they were young, and seeing them come to where they were this year, it was just pretty cool to see them mature and play the way they've been playing, because it was unreal. Yeah. Unfortunate they couldn't go, one step further, but it's a good. The club's in a really good space with the young boys. Yeah.
What do you obviously new coaches come in? Yeah. Whether you're in that environment, I'm not too sure that you've been back, but you obviously would have had conversations with the boys and whatnot. Anything different that was kind of happened previously with?
I think they're just by the looks of it, I was talking to TJ, it just looks like the boys are just expressing themselves on and off the field, and it's showing in the way they're playing, and their game plan seems to fit around the individuals in the team, bit of X factor, and that was showing throughout the season. But I think it's just being able to express themselves fully, even just sharing the team song on social media, and stuff like that, getting up with the times. It's a bit conservative, but now I'm seeing that kind of side, and then it's allowing the boys to be themselves on the field. So, I think that's, I could say that, Yeah,
that fan-centric stuff is really cool, the way that the connection is happening now and people are being let in.
Yeah, I think it's important, obviously to grow the game, but also to have that player-fan relationship, engagement. Yeah, absolutely. It's good fun.
Just on that, bro, because you're very, very good at it. Like, obviously you've done your podcast, but whenever you hear you speak, obviously people do listen because you're very authentic in the way you just present yourself. You express yourself.
Yeah.
Just saying. Did that come through like at a young age, or just being, was it just inbred to you with your family and whatnot, or
I don't know. I listen to a lot of Gary Vaynerchuk. He's an entrepreneur guy, and he talks about just being your authentic self. And I listen a lot to like what he would give advice to like athletes and what they should do around the attention of social media and how you can obviously just build that relationship. So
obviously very, very close to winning a Rugby World Cup.
Yeah.
And probably having time to digest and process what that's looked like. And obviously being vice captain, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Very well deserved. Where do you think the All Blacks need to get to? You'll be with the coaches and you'll be able to, I guess, get a DNA of what it's going to look like. But I guess the learnings that you took from that World Cup, and hopefully you can go through to the next one and the learnings taken from that.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, obviously it's like a new era. Like we've got total new coaches and just been named in the new team, which is a blessing. Like when I obviously have time to reflect, I think the biggest reflection is like when you're on the field dealing with pressure and dealing with big pressure moments and how you can solve problems, solve solutions on the go. Like we can, before the game, think of scenarios and have that, but these things that just chucked at you, And I think that was, for myself, the biggest learning curve was anything can happen, and it's being able to have leaders beside you and to like solve problems and have solutions to certain things and being able to solve them really quick. That's kind of the biggest lesson, and I think this year's exciting because it's new and got senior boys there to really grow that area and being able to move forward in that space and challenge ourselves against England first up will be a great test for us. I think that like big pressure moments, being able to adapt and adjust quickly, I thought could be our biggest growth area from the World Cup.
Hey, well, Ardie, thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate your time.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
Sure, brother. Arigatou gozaimasu.
Arigatou gozaimasu.
Kanpai.
Kanpai. I should be lower than you. I should be lower than you.
Right, so thank you to Ardie Savea for joining us on the show. What was the Kampai stuff about, Bryn? Take us to Japan, give us some cultural insight into what was happening there at the end of the interview.
So with me being older than Ardie as the example, you can never have the cheers. If you're the older person, if you're a younger player, you've always got to be able to do the cheers below the glass or whatever you're cheersing. So that's the kind of Kampai rule. A lot of the young boys will pretty much put their glass pretty much on the ground, a lot lower than the senior statesmen, because if they go above, there's a few punishments. Japanese old boys like to do. So just put it really, really low, and you can't go wrong when you've got it on the ground. So yeah, that's what it is.
I'm imagining you're going underneath Kwaka Smith as a multiple World Cup winner. You're going glass underneath, are you?
Oh, mate, mine's down the stairs, mate. Any chance I get to cheers him. So, yeah, definitely a bit lower than Kwaha's.
Now, let's talk about Kwaka and the Springboks. Well, he had a tough start. Tough start. But
kick-off.
Let's talk about the Boks, because it was quite interesting to see that evolution.
Man.
What's happened with Tony Brown there and the width they were playing with. They talked about it a lot in the commentary. You touched on it earlier about what allowed that width. Were you surprised?
I was surprised how easy they made it look. You'd think there'd be some teething issues. I don't know what. They seem to just have such a mojo. They don't ever seem to be rusty, even though they play all over the world. The skill set was first class, and man, Ireland were up for it. It was a weird test match though. More happened in that last 3 minutes than most of the test match. It was pretty quiet in that second half up until, and a great lesson to young wingers out there. You always chase your kicks for that try in the 64th minute. That was just good reward for something he's probably done a million times. And never ever had the ability to score a try, and he's just. Million and first time he gets a try. I just love that. That work that you normally just watch and take for granted, when it gets a reward like that, that's when it shows the importance and the skill set of Cheslin. But look, I just was really impressed with the Springboks. But I don't think it's all said and done. Like I thought, I saw enough from Ireland, especially in and around that breakdown that can give them some confidence. It's always going to be tough in South Africa, but you'd have to think they believe they can topple them.
Yeah. There were places where the Irish were quite dominant, breakdown especially. I wondered whether that had anything to do with the South Africans adapting to their width.
I think so, because as we were saying before with the All Blacks, just having that, okay, this player's going to carry and you're going to clean, there's no indecisive clean-outs. It's just very efficient, quick ball. Whereas when you've got a lot of options and there's a lot of comms coming in, you've got to get your timing right so you can receive the ball, clean out, or play halfback. So you sort of want to see the back of their jersey, their jersey number. If you get ahead of that and you've got to do a U-turn, especially against a team like Ireland, they've got such a dominant loose forward trio in and around the turnover at the breakdown. So I definitely think it'll be a focus area and may mean they just need to simplify, their carry, clean stuff in and around that attack structure.
The breakdown area, if you were a halfback for both of those teams in that first half, you'd just be absolutely livid with the amount of work that was going off the ball and just the counter rucks between two teams and that quick ball that we've seen with Ireland. They weren't really getting that. Fuff wasn't getting that. He had people on the ground. He had people that was just kind of in his way. And so like the breakdown area for both teams, you could see it was a massive preview for both teams to be able to get there. But like, I actually think South Africa should have actually won a lot easier. I think if Andre Pollard ends up getting his goal kicks, it's a little bit different. I think it ends up being, what did I have here? It ends up being like 22-8 or 28-22-10 going into that last stanza. And I just think their attack is just going to get better. Like, Jip, you talked about it last week, their four-man options that they had Khaleesi, Peter Sef-du-Toit in the phase play shape, being able to be actually genuine ball carriers and having the ability to play with the ball in hand. So, like, man, if that's what we've seen in two test matches, I hate to think what they're going to be like in 2 years or even at the back end of this rugby championship with Tony Brown being there.
How good did Khaleesi look on the edge?
Yeah.
His catch passed, but then Henshaw, gee whiskers, that was a collision.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and like predominantly for that match, both of their loose forwards are right on the edge, just like what we used to see, Jip, with kind of Kieran Reid, and you'd have the hooker on the edge with Dane Coles back in the day. They've kind of seemed to split their
and
their loose forwards out on the edge.
Jerome played a lot of that.
Yeah, Jerome.
Edge stuff.
If you look at their variation that they had in their attack, off their four-mans, the different shapes that they had, even off their five-man or even their full lineouts, they were just getting to places where like they were either manipulated to try and get a weak shoulder in terms of the transition or just outside the transition, or getting to that kind of edge when you had Khaleesi and you had Peter Sef-du-Toit or Kwaha Smith in that space, getting to Henshaw, that 13 space. So, look, Tony Brown, man, he is going to he's got so much potential with that group. And we've always talked about being nervous. If they could ever get that attacking right, having the skill set with that big ball-carrying men that they have, they're going to be a tough team to stop when they're going to continue to keep getting better in that space.
We've got another question as well. Adrian McDonnell, I'm not 100% sure, via email. I would love to take on the refereeing of Luke Pearce at the weekend for the big calls around tries, and in particular the strained relationship he had with Carlin Doris after the Omani had left the field. Would love to hear how far you can push the ref before it backfires. You're a skipper. Talk to me about that. What did you see?
It's a very dangerous game.
Yeah.
You've got to... that can go horribly wrong very quickly, I can assure you. I always think the more proactive you could be before the game.
Yeah.
In terms of, dropping key sort of trends you've seen in the opposition that you want them to sort of look out for. You would have also done your homework on the ref. So where does he give his penalties away? What's his most common penalty? So that you understand where you need to be mindful. And also things that if he penalises, you know that he's watching them. So, sort of chatting about that with him and showing that you've done your work and trying to create that relationship pre-game. I think when you're trying to, do things in the game, you probably it's not your smartest tool, because you're sort of not backing the game plan you've come in with. You know, like if you're relying on that so-called manipulation or whatever you want to call it. I think there's guys that are natural at it, and then there's guys that push it too far.
Yeah, there was some angst. Certainly the Irish have probably been accused of pushing it too far. Johnny Sexton was a fairly lippy bloke to referees. You know, I suppose teams create a certain amount of reputation and they have to carry that baggage with them to some degree.
Yeah, they do. But I think the biggest thing that I think with refs is being able to firstly, what Jip touched on around their trends and what they penalise for, and I guess prepping yourself for the kind of style of ref that you're going to go up against is really important. But I think understanding their personality and actually go a little bit deeper in terms of who they are as a person and what they're like under pressure. So some refs that we would play against, you couldn't really talk to them. They were more of a dictator kind of referee. They like to be able to be in charge, which is fair enough. That's just the way they officiate things. So the way to be able to try and manipulate or have conversation is probably less in between. So you're not going to have a lot of them. Or sometimes when you have a ref that likes to have conversations, but it might be able to be like, you need to show solutions, or you need to talk about in a certain way. And once you can really grasp and understand the type of referee that you're going to go up against, then you're able to have those kind of conversations a lot easier. If you're just going to be emotional and just yelling at the ref, nobody's going to like that. Look, if someone yelled at the three of us, you know, we'd be just like, no, we don't want to talk to you. And that's just subconsciously within yourself. You don't want to deal with that. So the good captains, I think, have a really good understanding in how deep they can go with how the referees officiate, but also them as persons and how they react in certain situations, especially when it's heightened, and what they fall back to.
At the end of the day, they're in charge. Like, that's the reality of it. And I always found if you did the work prior and you almost asked them how they wanted to be communicated with, because at the end of the day, if you do work with them on their terms, you're more inclined to get a response or get clarity of understanding. And so I always felt that was the best approach. I've tried many approaches, many failed. But that was almost getting the answer from them so that it was respectful. You know, rather than me saying, I'm going to talk to you at these times, get on board, versus, hey, how best am I to communicate to you when I've got something to ask? How would you like it?
I need you guys to talk to my 4-year-old. if he could approach things like that, the household would be there'd be a little less fire in the house.
One day.
I'm the ref. You're the player.
Say the brain's completely developed around 24, 25, so you don't have that long to wait.
Yeah.
I've got a daughter, so
I
a bit earlier.
I'm not going to name the player, but he went so in depth. He went so in depth, being able to try and get on side of the ref before a game. He would go in terms of what his kids, how many kids they had, where they lived, where he went for his holidays, and being able to have that kind of connection every single time that he saw him before a game, to have that kind of understanding that, you're a person, I'm here for you, trying to talk to you and going a little bit deeper, which again, when a player comes to you and you're going to that level of being able to try to know someone, especially a ref, right? It's that might be one game where he just feels good because that's happened. Might have nothing to do with it, but that's some extremes that some players go to try and get on the side of a ref. It was a halfback.
How is Sam Whitelock?
Wasn't Sam Whitelock?
Still playing, this person? Are we going to play a game against him? Yeah. Still playing?
I never played with him. Played against him a lot. Is retired now. But yeah, that's what I'm going to give you. He's a little bit older.
Let's talk about Australia and Wales. The Aussies got up 25-16 in the first game of the Joe Schmidt era. Jip, what did you see from the Aussies? Did you see much change? Did you see much evolution?
Oh, look, I think we'll see more and more. I didn't see it a hell of a lot, but as Joe sort of came out publicly going, geez, this is the most underprepared I've felt in terms of knowing players, understanding their strengths. So I think it's going to be something that I think they'll definitely improve from that performance. I still don't think, knowing Joe Schmidt, he won't be happy. There was still plenty of room for improvement, but they got the job done. A totally different side that demolished them at the World Cup for Wales, but from where they've come from, that's a hell of a start. If you think about it, like they were in turmoil, like they didn't get out of pool play. I mean, Eddie Jones left in the most weird manner. It was just an absolute dog's breakfast. So I think they'll be really happy with the result, but there's plenty of room for improvement for the athletes they have. They're good athletes, but it's just the structure and how they play is only going to get more and more efficient under Joe Schmidt.
What did you see as the improvement as far as gameplay was concerned, Bryn?
Their face play shape, I think they'll get better in time in terms of what Joe Schmidt does and what he did at Ireland, be more prescribed, and guys will be a lot more clear in terms of being able to know where they need to be. But look, I thought their breakdown work was pretty good.
That's his MO.
Considering, and
he loves the breakdown.
Exactly. When under Eddie Jones, they just make a lot of mistakes. Now, whether that was because there was too much clutter and they weren't understanding of their roles, and you could just see there was a lot of mistakes at high pressure situations, I think you're going to see it a lot better, and we saw that a lot better against the Wales. But the one thing that I was really impressed as well is that, you know, I've found in the last couple of years watching the Wallabies is that they'll give dumb penalties away. They'll give penalties away, especially in big moments in games, especially the last 10 minutes. But if you look on the weekend, I thought, like, defensively, they were really, really well connected.
How good's Tom Wright? I feel like he doesn't get as many reps. Like, he's had an amazing year for the Brumbies. He's really found a home. Like, I would say he's one of the most improved players in world rugby.
Correct me if I'm wrong, I always felt Tom Wright had a few mistakes in him. Kind of similar to James Lowe, where, you know, you kind of get rocks and diamonds. One minute he's going to be incredible, the next, what was that?
Yeah.
I don't feel like that's in his game anymore.
No, and maybe he just was a fullback.
Yeah.
You know, he's playing on the wing for so long. But, yeah, he just, I don't know, he just seems to be getting better and better. And he's the sort of player under Joe Schmidt, you know, you can get even more growth out of him. But yeah, just a random thought that just came into my head just then.
A perfectly good thought. Well, let's look ahead to the weekend to come. There's a fair few games going on. We'll get through them all pretty quickly. We've got Uruguay, France, I imagine that's a pretty straightforward result. Tonga at home against Italy. What do you think about that?
Well done to Samoa. That's a good result. That was extremely impressive. I did not pick that. Italy. Talk about rocks and diamonds.
Yeah.
Oh, they have to get up.
Tonga?
No, I think Italy.
Yeah. You're picking Tonga or Italy?
Same points as Italy.
Okay, great. USA v Scotland.
Scotland.
New Zealand
against
England.
Of course he's going England.
New Zealand.
I imagine
the All Blacks.
Australia are backing it up for both of you.
Yep.
And then Japan versus Georgia.
I'm going to go Japan.
I'm going to go Japan. We'll get over Georgia.
Okay, and let's talk South Africa, Ireland. Are you sticking with South Africa?
South Africa.
South Africa for you as well? Okay.
Yep, South Africa.
So we're seeing
Argie?
France, Argie.
France.
Yeah. Oh, it was interesting. France 28-13 over Argentina was, considering the French team was decimated, quite a result.
Yeah, very. I mean, we've waxed lyrically about the French depth for a long time, but it's still, you know, formidable. I want to make a special mention to the under-20s beating France.
Yeah.
As well. That was amazing, and it's going to be great to see them back in the semis. And you know, after having Jared on, you know, geez, I hope they go all the way.
Yeah, it'd be a big achievement in a short period of time.
Massive.
So, yeah, thank you very much once again for joining us here on the Aotearoa Rugby Pod. Plenty of rugby to look forward to, plenty to chat next week when hopefully we'll have Ethan Roots and also Sevu Reece on the show next week. So thank you for you tuning in. Thank you to James Parsons. Thank you to Bryn Hall. And make sure you send us your emails, your comments. We'll get onto them next week. Thank you to the crew who helped put the show together as well. Mā te wā.